how to enter a scale in SPSS or PSPP. Now SPSS and PSPP are quite similar in certain ways, so I'll be using PSPP, but you can apply what you see here in SPSS as well. So let's look at one scale, that is the WHO5, which is the well-being index. It has a total of 5 items or 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it is rated on a 0 to 5 Likert scale, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and 0 stands for all at no time, and 5 stands for all of the time. So every scale will have some sort of scaling or scoring like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And every scale will have certain number of items as well. So here we have 5 items. So let's go to the software itself. Yeah, we go to the two views. Obviously, one is the data view, the other is the variable view. We need to enter the scale in the variable view. So click on variable view, and then in the names and the name column, use the small letters and type WHO1. Now that's a short form I'm giving to this first item of the scale. So this scale has 5 different items. So for the first item, I say WHO1. Yeah, WHO1, and the label I can use capital letters here, WHO1. So name usually is small letters, and the label can be in capital letters. You can also have space in the label, but you can't do that in the case of the name. So WHO space 1. So similarly, I type all the others as well. WHO2 small letters. Here I use capital WHO space 2. And here WHO3, WHO3, WHO4, capital WHO space 4, and WHO5, and here you have capital WHO space 5. So all the 5 items have been entered now. Now you go to the data view, you can see it's already here. Now SPSS, you'll have the empty columns still here, but in PSPP, only the variables that you enter are shown. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is the first respondent. Let's say he says for the first question, his scoring is for 4. Yeah. So we'll say 4. He says, what does he say? He actually says most of the time. So I have felt cheerful and in good spirits. He says most of the time. So 4. So we enter 4 here. Yeah. And for the second question, the second item, he says, I have felt calm and relaxed. For that, he says more than half of the time. So let's say that's 3. So he says, so this will be 4. This will be 3. Yeah. And so on. So let's say he says 4 again here for the third question, and 5, and then 4 or 3. It's up to you. And so this is how you enter the data, right? For the second respondent, let's say he says for the first question is 5, for the second it's 4, third it's 5, and 4 is 4, and then fifth one is 5. Yeah. So that's how you enter it. You can also reduce the decimals if you want. You go here and reduce the decimals and make it 0 because it looks a bit awkward. You need not, but if you want to, you can do it. So that's how you enter the scale in SPSS or PSPP for each of the respondent. In the next part of the video, I'll show you how to total the score. So once you have the 5 items, there's a certain way of totaling it and then classifying the respondents based on their scores. Yeah. Welcome back to the video. So we have 10 respondents, and they have filled out the responses. Now we want to total this score. Okay, so if you look at the scoring pattern, now every scale will have a scoring guide, so you should always read the scoring guide before. So here it says the raw score is calculated by totaling the figures of the 5 answers. Yeah, so you need to add all these 5 answers. The raw score ranges from 0 to 25, 0 representing worst possible and 25 representing the best possible quality of life. So the score ranges from 0 to 25. So now we need to total this. We only had the individual responses. We need to get a total here. For that, it's the same process in both PSPP and SPSS. Go to transform. There's something called compute or compute variable in some cases. Click that and you'll get this sort of calculator. Yeah. And yeah, there's some numbers already there, so I had to click reset. Usually it's clear like this. So you pull in WHO1, that's the first item. Click the addition symbol, the plus symbol, and then 2, that's WHO2, plus 3, you pull it in, and then plus 4, pull it in, plus 5, pull it in, plus. So now you have the 5 items, or you don't need a plus at the end. Yeah, so you have these 5 items together. Now you can give a name to it. Now the name should always be in small letters, so you say TOTWHO, that is total quality of life or World Health Organization scale. And the label also can be, it can be properly mentioned there. So total score, I would say total score. Yeah, right. So we have that, and then we click continue, and then we click OK. So you get an output file which says execute, means the variable has been created. Now we go back to our the data view. Yeah, okay. So here we have the total score, it's already here. If you want, you can go to the variable view and reduce the decimals so it looks less awkward. So now you go to the data view, you can see the responses. Yeah, they don't have the dots here. Now the next part of the video, I'll show you how to classify these responses into below average and above average. The scales will tell you a certain categorization of the scores. So for example, 0 to 10 is low, and 11 to 15 is moderate, and 15 and 16 and above is high, or something like that. Okay, but some scales like this one, they don't have a classification, right? So if you want to classify the respondents between below average and above average score, you can do that as well, right? But usually there is a classification already given. Since it's not here, we are going to assume that so here they say that the raw score ranges from 0 to 25. 0 represents the worst possible and 25 represents the highest possible. So let's say the average is somewhere in between. Let's say 12.5 is the average, and so we'll assume that as 12. And so anyone who scores between 0 to 12 is below average, and anyone who scores from 13 to 25 is above average, right? So we are just assuming that. So let's go and do that with regard to the data. So when you look at the data view, you already have the total scores here. Now we go to transform again, and there's something called recode into different variables. Don't click the recode into same variables, otherwise the old data will get deleted. You need to select the recode into different variables. Now in recode into different variables, pull in total score WHO, that's the total score, and then click on old and new values. Okay, old and new values. Here there's something called range. You click range and you say 0 through 12 is 1, and click add. Then I tell the computer 13 to 25, which is the highest possible score, is 2. Yeah, so click that. So I'm telling the computer anyone who scores between 0 to 12, classify them as 1, and anyone who scores between 13 to 25, classify them as 2. Why we are doing this, I will let you know soon. So click continue, and just click there, and then you can name the variable. I say level, this should be in short form, so LVL well-being, WHO, I'll just say WHO. So here I'll say level of well-being in the label. In the label you can use the proper words, level of well-being. Okay, and I click change. So now it's done, and I'll click OK. You'll again get this output file which says execute. Now going back, if you go to the data view, you will see there's a new variable created. Those who scored between less than 12 are 1, and those who scored 13 and above are 2, right? So we reduce the decimals to 0, and then we add the values. We tell the computer 1 is below average, yeah, 2 is above average. Click add and click OK. So I've given the values to the level 1, Yeah, I've said 1 is below average. Anyone who scores 2 is considered to be above average. I click OK. Now I want to know how many respondents are below average and how many are above average. So I go to analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. Yeah, and I don't need standard deviation or mean or maximum because we're dealing with the categorical variable here. So pull in level of well-being inside and just click OK. So now if you go to the output file, you'll get a percentage here. So below average, 70% of the respondents are below average in terms of well-being and 30% are above average. So that's one way of finding out how many respondents are doing well in this index and how many are not. So that's it for now. I hope it's not too long of a video for you to, anyway. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, and if you do have some doubts, some topics that you want me to cover, please let me know and I will cover them for you. Thanks and have a nice day.